You know, when you've been around air guns long enough, you hear people say things like they don't make them like they used to. And in some cases that may be true. When it comes to the pellets that we used to shoot out of our old guns, now, they don't make them like they used to, that's true, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? Welcome back to Canic Air. What I've got here is an assortment of old tins of pellets that when you muck around with old air guns, eventually you come across an old tin of pellets. Or some of these are ones that I've actually shot. These are empty tins that I just can't bring myself to throw away. This one actually, I never actually got to shoot these. I think I explained in an earlier video that this tin came with a sticker over the top of this that just had the regular Champion pellets, which is what was inside. These Champion Ballistic with sort of a steel ball bearing hidden inside them would have been pretty cool, but haven't ever seen any of those. But these other pellets are a lot more ordinary. The BSAs, I remember quite fondly that I thought these were quite good quality, but it does drive you crazy when you decide to go back to the gun shop and get another tin or two and then find out that, oh, they don't carry those anymore. You know, same thing with these Elys. Yeah, I think a lot of the English pellets just kind of disappeared off the shelves, aside from Milbro Caledonians. These ones seem to be around for quite a while. From what I read, I think the Milbro Caledonian brand continues on, but no longer made by Milbro. They're made under that name by Lanes, which is another company that made a lot of air pellets over the years. Bulldogs, I think, what was it, Beatall might have been one of theirs as well. So, yeah, Lanes is interesting, and oddly enough, I actually have a gun with from Lanes. I'll get to that someday, put that on the bench for you. But can we actually compare pellets like they used to be with the newer stuff? Well, in certain instances, if you stick around long enough, you end up with tins that actually still have pellets in them. These ones are all empty. That's one of my old ones. That's actually not that old. So, but here's 3 tins that I came up, actually 4 that I came up with not that long ago. Ely Wasp, yeah, another great name from the good old days. Just a straight, ordinary domed Diablo pellet with the typical striated skirts on them. So that was a common feature on pellets. Apparently it was just from the manufacturing process. It didn't actually make them fly through the air any better. But if it made you think they did, well then that was always a good feature. Got some Webleys here, but sad to say this tin is almost done. Other problem you run into with vintage pellets is, are they actually the pellets that belong in the tin? It's quite possible that somebody might have reused a tin, put some pellets that came in a cardboard container or something else, or threw in a lesser quality pellet. I do think these are genuine Webleys though, because I can compare them to these, and I've had these for quite a while. This is an older tin, 22 special pellets, and these actually are 22s. Apparently for a while there, Webley had to send them out with the wrong markings on the tin, so I can't remember whether it was 177s and a 2210 or all the way around. Can't remember. But these pellets do look very much the same thing, so yeah, I think these are genuine Webleys, but these are also genuine Webleys, I believe. Can't prove it for certain, but yeah, very cool tin of pellets. Was never able to actually bring myself to shoot any because, you know, once they're gone, right? Here's another one, Casnar, 22 caliber 5.5mm air rifle pellets, made in Great Britain. Again, this looks like a tin from the 1970s, I'm going to say, and I think this is probably 60s, 70s vintage. Going to go with 70s or 80s on this one, maybe. Hard to say. Casnar. What the heck is Casnar? Made in Great Britain, but it does say Casnar Imports, Postbox, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And a little bit of research turns up that Casnar, again, import company, and they're often better known for the scopes that they used to import from Japan with their name on them. And they're kind of fondly remembered for being a good quality product at not too expensive. apparently they also got into airgun pellets, and they got theirs from England. So these were made by one of the British manufacturers for Castnar. Were they made by Lanes? Were they made by Millbro? Were they made by Webley, Ely, BSA? I don't even know if Webley, Ely, and BSA made their own pellets. Maybe they also got them made by one of the other manufacturers. I don't know. But interesting pellet, and again, domed pellet. Look a little shorter. And these ones, the ribs actually go all the way up the skirt and underneath the head. So, yeah, interesting variation there. And maybe that helps identify them too if I actually find something I can compare them to. These ones are a bit unusual. I didn't even know that Shakespeare got into the airgun pellet business. They had the guns. Let me grab the gun for you. Here we go. Shakespeare is mainly known for their fishing equipment, but back in the 60s and early 70s, they decided to make an air pistol. The Acro 1. In the U.S., it was sold under the Ampel name, but in Canada, it was the Shakespeare. And it is a Canadian-made gun. This one is anyway. I did an earlier video on it. But what I did not know was that Shakespeare also made pellets for it. And here they are, Shakespeare Acro pellets, 22 caliber, for all gas air spring guns. And this, of course, is a CO2 gas gun, but they were quite prepared to sell them to anybody who needed them. And they are said right here, made in Canada, Shakespeare Company, Canada Limited, Orillia, Ontario. Orillia is a well-known spot in Ontario, pretty much due north of Toronto on Lake Simcoe, and well-known in literary circles because that was the town that Stephen Leacock, well-known Canadian humorist, based his Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town. So that's it was well known that was Orillia was what he was thinking of when he wrote these lovely stories. If you want to understand Canada a little bit better, read this book. So anyway, what to do with these lovely pellets? Well, it definitely raises a possibility that we can actually test some vintage pellets. These obviously is not enough in the tin there, but I've got these. The Castnar, well, we don't actually know who made those, so not much point in really putting them through the paces because we won't really learn much. Except maybe just learning what a budget pellet would have done in those days, but don't know who made them, so maybe we'll put those aside. But that gives us 3 pellets here that we could test. Well, we know these will look pretty similar. These are Diablo-type wasp-waisted pellets. These are sealed. I don't know what's in here, so yeah, you're going to find out along with me. I'm going to crack the seal on these things. They've probably been in this little container since the early 70s. So, gosh, how long ago was that? Yeah, 50-odd years. It says press. Well, there we go. I think you just pull this out. What do we get? Oh, okay. Again. These look really similar to these other two, don't they? Yeah, almost the same thing. Yeah, we've got these serrations or striations that go right up the sides. So, yeah, interesting. So, it says they're made in Canada. They definitely look a bit oxidized. I might actually want to do something about that before I shoot them. Maybe clean them up a little bit, make them a little bit closer to what they were when they were new. But made in Canada, you say? Very hollow. Gonna have to check these out a bit, weigh them, compare them a little bit, and see what we can learn about them before we go shoot them. So now that I know that I've got 3 different Diablo pellets to test, what would I put them up against? Good question. Well, these are all 22 caliber, so I'm going to need some 22 caliber rifles. I need them with scopes, and I'm going to need some modern 22 caliber pellets to compare. What should we put up against them? Well, if we're going to test these aging vintage pellets against something more modern, which we all want to believe are vastly superior to what we had back in the day, what are we going to choose? Well, I'm going to go with 3 air rifles. And I'm going to probably shoot 2 groups with each, so with each pellet, so that adds up a bit. So yeah, it's a lot of shooting, so we can't test everything. But I'm going to go with some pellets that I know do well in the guns that I have. No point in testing stuff that is a bit disappointing, like these Grizzlies, made in China. Yeah, they're a bit iffy. The Excite hammers are actually not bad, but may have some better choices. The Premiers, only Premiers I got in 22 are these hollow point ones, which are technically not the same type of pellet, but and these are also now getting well, unobtainium. So what does it leave us with? Well, the air arms pellets do well, particularly in my spring gun. So I think these ones actually do a little bit better. But these are the technically the regular Diablo pellets. These ones are slightly pointed, ever so slightly. So, but yeah, I think we'll go with these ones. These are made in the Czech Republic under the Air Arms name. So weirdly enough, now we have a British branded pellet made elsewhere, which is opposite of what happened back in the day. So we'll go with these ones, I think. From China, which I think we have to probably include a Chinese pellet, these JTS dead centers seem to perform pretty well in 1 or 2 guns. I just recently shot them in the Corral Puncher Mega 2, and they did well there. So, gosh, they look almost identical in an appearance to the Air Arms ones, but they're not the same. These actually are heavier. They're 18.1 grains instead of 16, so a little bit heftier there. What else we have? Well, there's the RWS Super Domes, 14.5 grain. Not a bad choice. Again, we could go look at these. These are Kamita branded, but they're also a JSB pellet. These are Diana branded, also a JSB pellet. So we've already got JSB covered. I've got these from Brazil. I've got these Umarex Brimstones. These are 18.67 grains, even heavier. But I've never shot these yet. This is a can I just got recently, and I don't know anything about them, so that's probably a bit unfair. So I think out of all the choices I've got in domed pellets, I'm gonna leave all the pointed pellets and trick pellets out of the equation at the moment. Looks like we have our 3. We've got a German pellet, Chinese pellet, and a Czech pellet. Try them in 3 different guns. That's a lot of shooting, but maybe we'll learn something. Sounds like fun. Well, if I'm going to do this experiment right, I got to get organized. So I'm going to sort the pellets a little bit, considering that since they've been rolling around inside these tins for the better part of several decades. Probably makes sense to pick out some of the rough-looking ones. Dented skirts or things like that might not be the best representative of them. And we'll give them every advantage we can. But I'm also going to sort them by weight, see what they do. Anyway, these are the Webleys. So that's 14.2. Which makes them, I'm going to need about 40 each of these pellets, so 13.8. That's quite a little variance there, isn't it? Okay, so let's see what kind of weight variation we get on these Ely Wasps. See if they're any different than the Webleys. .7. Well, out of the gate, they already seem to be a little bit heavier than the Webleys are. Doesn't seem right. Scales gave me a lot of trouble today. Okay, so this is interesting, but the Ely wasps, the vast majority of them measure 14.6 grains. There's a couple at 14.7 or 14.8. I can afford to be choosy and just eliminate those ones right away. And there was one at 14.4. Everything else is 145, 14.5 or 14.6. So I'm going to use those. I'm going to pick through them again, see if there's any damaged ones, anything that looks a little bit iffy, and I can eliminate those. And I should still have 40 good pellets left to do my test with. With fresh batteries on my scales, things seem to be working a lot better. As for these Shakespeare branded Acro pellets, made in Canada, these ones are a bit more oxidized, so I think what I may do with these is give them a bit of a wash after I've picked out the ones that I'm going to use. And yeah, they are definitely a bit powdery. So we'll clean them off and then maybe give them a little bit of a lubricant on them just to bring them back to probably what they should have been originally. So, okay, what do we got here? .6. Okay. Right in line with those wasp pellets. Okay, so we have a good pattern here. These range a good bit more than the Elys did anyway. There's a handful at 14.0 and 14.1. I can afford to eliminate those from the testing because I've got plenty in 14.2, 14.3, 14.4, and 14.5. That should be able to make up my 40 pellets. And I can eliminate the heaviest ones, which are 14.6 and 14.7. So I've got 14.2, 3, 4, and 5. That's not much of a weight variance there. And I'll check all these over, wash them, lubricate them, and hopefully they'll be ready for shooting. Well, I'm going to give these Acro pellets a bit of a leg up on the competition by giving them a clean, just because they're the most oxidized of the bunch. Just using a little bit of sudsy water with a bit of degreaser thrown in there. Just going to swish them around a bit, hopefully knock off some of that white lead oxide that's built up on them over the years. Don't know if it'll make much of a difference, but after I'm done cleaning them off, I'm going to there's something coming off them, isn't there? I'm going to give them a little bit of a spritz with some Dillon case lube, which is designed for running brass cartridges through a reloading press, make things a little bit easier. And I think that just because that's the kind of lubricant that sort of evaporates and just leaves a light film on things, so I don't want to oil these things up or anything. That would be a bad idea. Yeah, definitely cleaning up a little bit. Don't see any chunks of anything coming off, like no swarf or particles that are trapped in the rear cavities. So at least I haven't seen anything yet. So once I take them out, I'm gonna towel them off and let them dry before I do anything else to them. But that should make them nice and ready for our test. If we do a comparison of our 22 caliber pellet contenders, I have here on the left, contender number 1, the vintage Ely Wasp pellet. These are fairly short compared to our modern competitor. This is an Air Arms Diablo Field, a check-made pellet. You can see the very nice, clean almost machined interior of the pellet compared to the somewhat more roughly stamped out Ely pellet. This one is not one of the ones I'm going to be using. You see a couple of nicks in the rim. The ones I've got are a little better condition, so those have been set aside. You notice, of course, the striations on the pellet. They on this one they go right up the sides into the bottom of the head. Not all pellets. Not all pellets that are made that way look like that. But so here we go. We'll see how that does. Competitor number 2 is our Webley number 2 bore, which is supposedly 22 caliber. It has occurred to me that the English pellets, especially of this vintage, are slightly larger in diameter than what we typically get today. We consider 22 caliber to be 5.5 millimeter. Apparently the British consider that about 5.6 millimeters is closer to the bore of their guns. So these could be a little bit more of a tight fit, which still doesn't, I don't think will stop them from shooting, but that might be an advantage for all we know. Anyway, this, as I said, is the Webley. This one here is an RWS Superdome. These are, again, about the same weight, about 14.5 grains is what they specify for these. Obviously a little bit shinier, and you notice a good bit taller. This pellet, like the Webley, does have striations on it from manufacturer. That apparently doesn't really affect much, although we do see finer match grade pellets with smooth sides on them. But anyway, these are these striations certainly always back in the day gave us the idea there was some sort of aerodynamic effect to them, that they kind of guided the pellet in the airstream. They really don't. These have a bit more of a, they're not as neatly finished on the inside. These are a lesser expensive pellet than some of the ones we're testing, but these do perform quite well on a lot of guns. You can see there's an extra ridge on the inside, or a lip on the inside of the skirt there. And the Webley is, again, sort of a fairly roughly stamped out interior there. And the dull finish, of course, just comes from years of age and storage in the tin. They may have been just as shiny as these back in the day. But there's no mistaking how short and squat this one looks in comparison to the RWS. Again, as I say, same weight, and the RWS has a much narrower waist on it too. So we'll see how that pans out. And the last side-by-side comparison I have is the Shakespeare Acro pellet, made in Canada according to the tin, and this is the JTS Dead Center 22 caliber pellet. These are a little heavier. These are an 18.1 grain pellet. Again, taller than the vintage pellet for sure, and that may in fact be, you know, some guns may have had trouble feeding longer pellets. I do recall I had trouble getting something or other that was longer into my Acro gun. They just would not fit. So shorter pellets were maybe the order of the day. This again has a much neater finish on the inside there. Almost, you can just see the machining on the mold from that one. These ones are kind of, again, stamped out a bit. The similarity of these pellets is kind of striking. That from the Ely to the Webley to this one, you almost wonder if they're made on really similar machinery using the same sort of dies. Maybe they got them all from the same place. So there are differences. These ones certainly varied in weight a good bit more than the Webleys or the Elys, but that could just come down to, you know, various quality control in manufacturing or speed of manufacturing, or just, you know, how the equipment was doing that day. It's hard to say, but there are differences here. Again, a much taller pellet here, so we'll see how that one pans out. But had some success with these. These are Chinese made. Again, these are made in Canada. So I decided to go with 3 rifles, all in 22 caliber, to test our various pellets. The one on the bottom is spring piston powered. The one in the middle is CO2, and the one at the top is PCP. So that should give us an idea of, you know, various power plants and power ranges, just to see how these pellets will do. The one at the bottom is a Benjamin Classic, break action, typical Chinese-made gun, and it does have an 18.5-inch barrel, just for reference there. which actually is about the same as the barrel on the Artemis CO2 gun. The Corral does have a longer barrel, about 20 something inches there, so a little bit longer there, but overall they should give us an idea of what we can expect from our pellets. So all three guns have scopes just to keep the sighting, you know, out of being an issue. So what is a Benjamin Classic 22? Well, this is, as far as I can tell, a Canadian market exclusive gun, designed to be sold in hardware stores and places where they didn't need to be checking firearms licenses. So up to 495 feet per second, which in 22 caliber gives you a decent foot-pounds. Canadian law just simply has this 500 feet per second regulation, so it doesn't matter what the caliber is, just so long as the pellet doesn't exceed a certain velocity. So 22 caliber at 495, which in reality, when I chronographed it, turned out to be around about 460, which is about to be expected. They never do quite as well as you think. But what is it exactly? Well, it is, again, if you think that it's just another variation on the B19 platform, which is used in things like the Crossman, Optimus, and Vantage, and a whole host of others over the years, you'd be exactly right. It is exactly that. It's another parts bin kind of gun, but one that I really like. Actually, I really enjoy shooting this gun. It surprised me when I got it, and it continues to surprise me to this day. It's quite an enjoyable gun. So this is what it looks like, of course. It has a thumb hole stock, which, as I think I've said in videos before, I'm a bit of a sucker for the thumb hole design. It's got that safety inside the trigger guard, which you come to see on things like the Crossman Optimus. It has some fancy engraving here. You know, the Benjamin logo appears here and here, which I think is sort of interesting in that Benjamin were never known for making spring piston air guns. And of course, this one's made in a factory in China, so Benjamin didn't really make it. But and of course, Benjamin at this point was under the ownership of Crossman, so they could do whatever they wanted with the name, I suppose. But a little bit of a shame there. It's then again, what name would I put on it? That's a good question. I think it's a nice gun. I enjoy it very much. Weird touches on it. The trigger guard is a metal piece, even though we've seen this trigger guard reproduced in plastic on a lot of other guns. The trigger itself is also a metal piece. Trying hard, I think, to earn that classic name on the box. A couple of plastic parts here. The cap on the back of the breech is a plastic piece. The barrel end has this vinyl rubber sort of suppressor-looking device on the end of it. But on the plus side, over the years, this gun has weathered in a little bit so that I can break it open without whacking it, which is what I used to have to do when I first got it. So if I brace the gun against me and just pop it open. So it came with the center point 3-9 scope, which is what's still on it to this day. It seems to work quite well. It is parallax adjustable, which is important. The illuminator works kind of well against oddball backgrounds. So yeah, this other things I could have chosen for the 22 caliber spring piston contender, but this gun works well enough that I think it should show whether the pellets we're trying, what the differences are, whether some are worse than others. That's for sure. So this was a fairly logical choice. We'll see how it does. And I should mention this gun is not stock. I bought it with the full intention of tinkering with it and having fun with some modifications and seeing what I could do to have fun with the platform. So before anybody posts in the comments that you can make all sorts of adjustments to these triggers, that has been done. I've got the little ball bearing, the little roller bearing you put in on the triggers to speed up the pull. As these guns come out of the box, the trigger just goes and goes and goes and goes till finally it releases. The box claims it's a 2-stage adjustable trigger, which no, it's not. The adjustment on it, there's a little adjuster screw that behind it, and the one it comes with is too short to actually screw in far enough to actually touch anything. So that has been replaced, and I've tweaked the trigger just a little bit. I could do it a little bit more, but yeah, the trigger's been looked after. Also, as I say, the Canadian market, this gun was designed to be sold without a firearms license requirement, and they kept the feet per second rating under 500. This is now putting out about 660 with regular pellets, and that was basically from replacing the spring with a stronger version. There are 3 different weights of springs I was able to find for this gun that Craftsman puts into various guns. This is the middleweight one, and it said it puts out about 660 with 22 caliber ordinary weight pellets. I can't remember which ones I was using at the time. I did try it with the strongest spring. I have one of those still in the box somewhere, and I was getting in the 750 range. But the gun, I shot it a few times and just thought, no, it's just a bit too harsh and unpleasant to shoot with that. So, and for what? It just makes a lot of more effort to cock it, and you're gaining, a hole in a target is a hole in a target. So, and I don't hunt with it or require any sort of substantial foot-pounds downrange. So, this does quite nicely at the 660 feet per second range. So I also put a piston liner in there just to suppress a little bit of vibration on the inside of the piston. So that a few small tweaks. I haven't really thought any more up for it, but I say it shoots quite nicely and it should do well in the test.
So let's take a closer look at the next rifle we're going to be using for testing all our pellets.
Our contender for the CO2 powered category is this Artemis CR600W. It's sold in various markets under different names. It's also very similar to the Diana Trail Scout, but you can also find it under the Snow Peak name in the UK. I think it's sold as an SMK, and I think I found there was a couple of others out there. But for a while, these were available in Canada as Artemis. I think that name seems to have disappeared right now, and it is sold as a Snow Peak, I think. CR600W, 600 supposedly is feet per second, I believe. CO2, rifle. W means wood. This is a wood stock. There is a synthetic version and other things here and there. This is, again, 22 caliber. You can shoot it from a magazine or single shot loader. The rifle itself is wonderfully petite. It does have the same sort of length barrel as the Benjamin, but of course set much further back into the receiver, so the gun overall is quite short. The length of pull, though, from buttstock to trigger is actually adult size, so no complaints there. And even though it is a Chinese-made gun, it's quite well put together. Cast metal trigger guard, fairly solid cast receiver block. I've taken off the rear sight here. It's safely tucked away in the box. And one fun thing with this gun is it will hold 3 CO2 cartridges. You either have to use one of them with the plastic adapter that came with to hold it up against the face, or you put all 3 in there. And you only use one at a time in this gun, which is great because some other guns, you have to pierce 2 of them. I think the Diana, yeah, same thing with that. Actually, you pierce 3 of them, all 3 of them at once, which means you're sort of committed. Whereas this one, you can just shoot about 30 plus shots out of it with the one cartridge. What I expect I'll be doing is shooting most of the shots with one cartridge, and then I'll switch over to the second one, just to make sure I've got fresh CO2 and I don't end up losing shots from lack of velocity. So very handy little gun, bolt action, and again the magazines go in there or else as a single shot loader. I've got a scope on here. This is a 3-9 Spina. It has illumination, which doesn't work terribly well. It's best if you just use it with the black crosshairs. But it's a nice, handy little compact scope. Suits the size of the rifle. The turrets are zeroable and all kinds of fun things. So it actually does a good job. So that will be our contender for the pneumatic CO2 category.
And for the full power test, we need a PCP rifle.
And last but certainly not least, we have the Kral Arms Puncher Mega 2. If I had any suggestions to make to Kral as to how to improve their products, I'd probably want to talk about how they get their alphabet soup with their names. But anyway, this is 22 caliber, which is what we need for the test. Shoots from a magazine or single shot tray. The single shot tray is totally hopeless, so I'll be having to use the magazine. It has adjustable power. It is turned up full. It is regulated. The regulator is set to about 120 bar, which is giving around about 800 feet per second at the muzzle. So and it should have enough shots for our test. Nice Turkish walnut stock with a nice stippling in here, metal trigger guard, metal parts pretty much all around on this gun, so they do quite well. And hopefully it's not too pellet picky, and it will let us know how we're doing with our trio of vintage pellets versus the modern stuff. Let's head out to the range.
Before I started shooting, I thought a really good idea would be to make sure that the barrel was clean before shooting and to clean it between each change of pellets. At least that was the plan anyway. I certainly did that with the Benjamin and the Artemis. I discovered that the Crowl, because it has sort of a weird little muzzle brake device inside the shroud that was just hanging up on the cleaning thing, so I gave up on that idea. But anyway, here I am shooting the Benjamin, sighting it in, just making sure on the target on the right. I'm just basically using it to sight in, make sure that I will be able to have reasonably useful groups near where I'm shooting at. This is greatly speeded up for your viewing pleasure, but what you'll notice I'm doing is interspersing the shooting. I'm shooting one shot on the left, one shot on the right, back and forth, back and forth. This is a good way of doing things to make sure that you're not biased one way or the other for one group over another. It's far too easy to see a good group and want to choose that one. Whereas what I'm doing here is shooting two groups interlaced and then averaging the two. Here the Ely Wasps are shooting, and you can see they're not doing quite as well as the Arams were a moment ago. The RWO Superdomes, oddly enough, shoot a little bit lower. It's fascinating how pellets of similar weights often print a bit differently on a target, but that's just how it goes. And the oldest pellets in the test are likely these very vintage Webleys. And they didn't do as badly as I thought they might. I think the vintage pellets did a little bit better than I thought they would do. Given that they look pretty scruffy when you look at the close-up images I had of them. So they're not totally dreadful. These heavier pellets from JTS were printing a bit higher on the target compared to the lighter ones. And again, that's kind of to be expected. It's opposite to what you think. You often think a heavier pellet should shoot lower, but that's not really how it goes. And there's a very good, valid reasons for that. And last up, I ran with the Canadian-made Acro pellets, and they shot kind of all over the place. Especially out of the Benjamin, it just didn't really seem to do very well with them at all. Each session at the range took about 2 hours. And that mainly because, I've got a lot of camera equipment to set up and lighting and all kinds of various things, and to get it all sorted out. Cleaning the barrel between pellets was also fairly time consuming as well. This is the Artemis CO2 gun being put through its paces here with the various pellets. Using a single shot tray with it rather than the magazine. And it shot pretty well with pretty much most of the pellets we tried. It's a nice little gun. It's always interesting how one group can be noticeably better than the other, despite the fact that you're really not doing anything different from target to target. Here I forgot to interleaf, so I end up shooting 2 on one and then 2 on the other before I get back into the rhythm at all. These look pretty promising, don't they? Yeah, that was completely my mistake, that shot up there. I'll explain that later. These 2 shots printed a little bit lower, so I was wondering if maybe my CO2 was starting to run out, so I switched over the cartridge for the next group. A little bit fascinating how some pellets just want to print in a slightly different place. These ones are going slightly to the right, whereas the super ones want to print a little bit to the left. And I assure you there's lots of time between shots for the cartridge to cool down and everything like that. So again, I've speeded this up considerably. So not sure why that one printed so low. Didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so back at the range on another day, and this time I brought the PCP gun, and getting it sighted in, and fighting with the aftermarket magazine for this thing, so I probably should have used the regular Crowl one, but once I got the hang of it, it worked all right. In the air arms field, once again, looking pretty promising. Printing slightly to the right, which I think pretty much all the pellets are going slightly to the right of this. I didn't zero it for the bullseye exactly, which is good, because you don't always want to shoot out the middle of your target. It makes it a little harder to aim. So that way I always got the center dot in the middle to a consistent aiming point. Little flyer down there, so kind of ruined it a little bit. Group on the right is looking pretty good, but that's why we do these alternating groups. It evens things out, and again, you shoot that, and well, there you go. Yeah, very strange. A vertical group on the left and a horizontal one on the right. Already we can see these super domes aren't quite to the liking of the Crowl. Surprised at that, actually, so yeah. But then again, they're a lighter weight pellet. This is a higher power gun. They do seem to suit heavier pellets for sure. Then the pellets that I probably had the most hope for didn't disappoint. The slightly heavier 18.1 grain JTS pellets prove that PCP guns do appreciate the heftier pellets for sure. And there are certainly some others that would be good contenders in this gun. The heavier field target pellets from H&N, the JSB heavies, they're all probably pretty decent performers. Usually, by the time you factor in what they would be center to center, are pretty darn tiny. And then there's the Shakespeare Acros. if you could ignore what's happening on the left-hand target, the right one doesn't look too bad, but yeah, that's how it all pans out.
So here's all my targets from the sessions at the range, which each one took about 2 hours per rifle, believe it or not. So there's about 6 hours worth of shooting here. Yeah, these things are surprisingly more complicated than they seem when you first get into it. But I've got all the groups marked out, drew little boxes around, you know, the maximum width and height. You can see where some of them are more vertical stringing than others. Weirdly enough, this is the Benjamin Classic, and while it definitely did well with the Air Arms Field pellets, these ones here, I do seem to remember it did better with these ones back in the day, but that's not the point where we're testing domed pellets, because that's what the vintage ones were. Yeah, this one did fairly well. I measured the outside to outside group, the maximum dimension, and then subtracted one pellet width. So 17.3 ends up being 11.8. So that's how it all kind of worked out. So the Air Arms did pretty well in the Benjamin. It did pretty well with the Ely Wasps as well. You know, definitely bigger groups though. You know, 25.8, 19.5. The RWS Superdomes, I expected to do a little better than they did, although that's an 11.6, which is actually better than the Air Arms. But this one ended up being a lot worse, so they averaged out to 18.35. It goes on and on and on with all these guns. So the one that obviously stood out as being the poorest performer was the Acro pellet. Gave them the best shot I could. You know, they're all sorted by weight, and then I actually ran them through a pellet sizer because they were just really, really stiff to get into the bore. So anyway, gave them the best shot I could. A little unfair advantage over the other ones, but they still didn't perform all that well. This group isn't great, but this one is considerably worse. So again, flyers were just causing all the issues here and there. So that was that for the Benjamin. The Artemis CO2 powered gun did pretty decently well with the Air Arms, except again, flyer, you know, ruined this group a little bit. But I was shooting back and forth, so you can't say, oh, I was shooting a little bit better, then I got a little more tired. No, you have to take the good with the bad. You shoot them alternating and average them out that way, and it gives you an average 5-shot group. The Ely's not so bad at 23.45. Weirdly enough, the Webleys came in at 12.55, so these are actually a pretty decent pellet. All told, you wouldn't think they would be. Again, sorted by weight. We didn't give that advantage to the modern pellets. The Superdomes, again, not terrible, but the JTS Dead Centers, these ones here, again, performed really, really, really well, actually. So, and again, the Shakespeare Acro is doing fairly poorly. I accidentally shot at the wrong target, so I had to actually shoot at a different target, and then I just glued this one down here, so that explains that. That was shot with a different thing, so that didn't count, but that's the group there. This one here, my hand actually literally slipped off the buttstock just as I was pulling the trigger, so threw it right out there. So I shot an extra one there just to make up for it. I'm not counting that one. That was totally my mistake. Pellet not to blame at all there. The Crowl are representative for the PCP world. Pulled in a really great group with the Air Arms, and then one here, just a little flyer there. That's very strange, but there it is. The Ely's weren't far behind, 14.6 average versus 12.35. You know, not terrible. The Webleys in this case didn't do as well. They spread a bit more on that gun. So, and the Superdomes, not great either. So, whereas the JTS Dead Centers, our average group size is 3.35 millimeters, just little ragged holes. So, kind of would have expected that. These are a heftier pellet, 18.1 grains according to the tin. So, yep, a little bit heavier pellet in a more powerful PCP gun. That's a recipe for success. A heavier pellet in those more powerful guns makes sense. Shakespeare Acro pellets, not great. Still this flyer right here just kind of ruined things for that group especially. So So I took all this data, tried to figure out what I was going to do with it. So what I've done is a couple of charts. One ranks the pellets first to last with each gun, and then I basically averaged the group sizes with each pellet and then figured out the rankings there, and I'll show you those two charts now.
So ranking the pellets first to last, we can see the air arms field did their best in the spring gun, whereas the pneumatic guns preferred the slightly heavier JTS pellets. The Shakespeare Acros came in dead last in all three guns. And then you've got the RWS and the Elys and Webleys kind of fighting it out for third, fourth, and fifth places. If we average out the groups, we can see now that the three most modern pellets do the best. And then the vintage pellets come up in the rear. And that's probably to be expected given given how they're made. The newer pellets are clearly a lot more consistent in their manufacture, a lot cleaner. And yeah, you'd expect them to be a little more precise, and that seems to be the case. That said, the Ely Wasps and the Webleys held their own not too badly. Did better than I thought they might do. If we've heard our dads and grandpas brag about how they used to light matches at the back fence with their old air rifle back in the day, yeah, there was definitely some skill involved in that, but also probably a good bit of luck, because none of these pellets we've tested are match head accuracy, I would say, at any decent distance. Whereas one of the more modern ones definitely would have an advantage there. But is it worth picking up these old dull pellets at a show to give them a test later on? Yeah, maybe, but don't expect too much. Anyway, thanks for watching. Kanaka will return. Consider subscribing.